This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Oil prices steadied on Tuesday after falling for the past two sessions, as investors remained cautious amid expectations of plentiful supplies and weak demand, while brushing off the U.S. presidential campaign upheaval. Brent crude futures for September rose 11 cents to $82.51 a barrel by 0645 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude for September climbed 5 cents to $78.45 per barrel. Traders mostly ignored U.S. President Joe Biden's decision to call off his re-election bid and endorse Vice President Kamala Harris on Sunday. Citi analysts said they believed neither Harris nor Republican nominee Donald Trump would promote policies that would greatly affect oil and gas operations.
Indonesian state-controlled refiner Pertamina has added Russian oil grades to its tender lists to buy September crude, three traders said on Monday. Pertamina has not purchased Russian oil for years, having taken a step back since the start of Russian-Ukraine military conflict in 2022, though Indonesia did not join Western sanctions against Russia. Pertamina last purchased Espo blend and Sokol oil from Russia more than 10 years ago, LSEG data shows. Western sanctions against the Russian energy sector, including an EU embargo on its oil and a price cap mechanism, have made China, India and Turkey the main buyers of Russian oil.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
The top two lawmakers on the Senate Energy Committee on Monday introduced long-awaited legislation to speed permitting of power transmission, mining and liquefied natural gas export projects. Senators Joe Manchin, an independent who caucuses with Democrats, and John Barrasso, a Republican, said their bill would strengthen the power grid and help keep power prices low. Building transmission capacity would help get electricity to cities from renewable power projects, many of which have gotten financial support from the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. Nearly 2,000 megawatts of clean energy is awaiting grid connection. The bill could help speed the Biden administration's goal to decarbonize the U.S. power sector by 2035.
A tanker that fled the scene of a fiery Friday collision off Singapore entered the area of Malaysia's Bertam floating oil terminal on Monday after being tracked down and intercepted by Malaysian authorities, shipping data from LSEG and Kepler showed. The Sao Tome and Principe flagged supertanker Series I had left the scene of the collision with the Singapore flagged tanker Hafnia Nile about 55 kilometers, 35 miles, northeast of the Singaporean island of Pedra Branca without explanation. The Series I, which was believed to have turned off its tracking system after the accident, was then found in Malaysian waters with two tugboats towing it, Malaysia's Coast Guard said. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. A tanker that fled the scene of a fiery Friday collision off Singapore entered the area of Malaysia's Bertam floating oil terminal on Monday after being tracked down and intercepted by Malaysian authorities, shipping data from LSEG and Kepler showed. The Sao Tome and Principe flagged supertanker Series I had left the scene of the collision with the Singapore flagged tanker Hafnia Nile about 55 kilometers, 35 miles, northeast of the Singaporean island of Pedra Branca without explanation. The Series I, which was believed to have turned off its tracking system after the accident, was then found in Malaysian waters with two tugboats towing it, Malaysia's Coast Guard said.
Iron ore futures prices slid on Tuesday to their lowest levels in more than 3 months as a lack of stimulus from China's third plenum raised the prospect of bleak demand from the top consumer. The most traded September iron ore contract on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange traded 2.06% lower at 785 yuan and 50 fen, $107.99, a metric ton, as of 0240 GMT, its lowest since April 8. The benchmark August iron ore on the Singapore exchange fell 1.67% to $101.75 a ton, also its lowest level since April 8.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture rated 67% of the nation's corn crop in good to excellent condition in its weekly crop progress report on Monday, down 1 percentage point, while analysts on average had expected no change. A Reuters poll of 13 analysts earlier in the day showed an average expected rating of 68% good to excellent for corn. The USDA rated 68% of the US soybean crop in good to excellent condition, in line with trade expectations and unchanged from last week. The ratings are still the highest for this time of year since 2020 for both crops.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.